Good evening or good morning or good night, depending where you are. This is Luciano and Roberto, and we are here to do another stream about Rust and Bevy, where we are very noob with both Rust and game dev, but we're going to try to learn something and build something together. Last time, which was last Monday, what we did, we started a very simple game, like a spaceship type of game, very similar to asteroids, if you're familiar with that, and we implemented some rendering of the spaceship and moving around and fuel system where if you run out of fuel you cannot move anymore and you're just stranded in space. So today we're going to continue building a little bit more of that, but we also explored a solution written in Python from Roberto. It was also kind of a prototype, and I think Roberto did a little bit more progress on that, so maybe we can start by looking at the new version that you have and maybe discussing a little bit of that Python code.
Yeah, sure, let's start with that.
So and then let me share your screen. Let's see. Okay,
let's start with showing you what we have. So let's start from the end. And
oh, nice. You added asteroids.
I added, yes, sprites. I think 10 of them, but there is a command line parameter to add more of them, and then you can still move your spaceship around. But if you hit the... Okay, I was able to not hit it, but if you hit the asteroid, you just explode, and you go in game over. Mm-hmm. From here, if you press R, the game is resetting, and you can go back to fly around and crash your ship.
Nice.
Then if you have multiple, what was the parameter for this? I think it was rock or rocks.
Okay, this is like extreme mode, right?
Extreme mode, exactly. You can specify how many you want of them, and when they touch each other, for now they got stuck together, and they collapse together, and they start to move together. I wanted to break them apart, but obviously more logic. But for now, we just start with some simple stuff like that. What changed in the Python code to achieve all of this? Okay. Well,
can you zoom maybe just 1 point?
This better?
Yes, better. Thank you.
Okay, I was saying we added the rock with a default of 10 as a parameter. Our init game now has also a loop on top of a rocks sprite group, and is adding a rock in a random place with a random movement. I also wanted to make them rotating, but I didn't have time to add it. I'm adding our rocks to our list of sprites in our game state. And there was a little bit of refactor around. Here there is the restart. If you press R and the game is in game over, you init the game again, and then you start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little bit of refactor here. That was some duplicated code that now is not there anymore. Some of this game over got moved in an helper module. So a function to write, a function to show the game over. And when you explode, now there is an explosion. So also now there will be a check if the spaceship is hitting a rock. So for all the rocks that I have, if the sprite collide with mask, because we want a pixel perfect collision, this is expensive, but for the ship is worth.
Mm-hmm.
If we touch exactly the rock, we add an explosion to the current sprite group of the player. We kill the current sprite, so we kill the starship, and we set the game in game over. The explosion itself is a sprite that is this class here. It has an asset that is an explosion. The asset is made of, please load. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames.
Mm-hmm.
I downloaded this from somewhere. I don't remember where, but those are all free assets, so I'm not in copyright is fine. The aspect of this sprite map or sprite atlas, like Bevy calls it, is 6x1, so 1 row, 6 sprites. Speed is the speed of the explosion, so how it's animated, how often the sprites change. Then this is the caching of the explosion, so we load it only once from the disk, not for every instance of the sprite, even if in this case we just instantiate one explosion. Then we set the image on the first sprite, on the first frame, of the sprite. And on update, we just say, okay, if we have enough speed, every 8 calls to update, go to the next frame. If you run out of frames, kill this frame. So this sprite. So the explosion will spawn, iterate through the 6th frame of the explosion, and then destroy the sprites.
Okay.
And done. So is born, it die, everything alone, except that it is spawned by the ship itself. Instead, the rock is again another sprite. This one is not an asset. You don't see any rock asset here. This is programmatically created. So I'm creating an empty 64 by 64 surface, transparent, completely transparent, 32 bit of bit space, but this is a detail. We are black and white. I could have written one, but 32, why not? And then I choose if having 5 or 8 section of this rock. So the rock is a polygon. So 5 or 8, between 5 and 8 points. I throw a random distance from the center between 16 and 31. So if it's 64 by 64, going in circle at a distance. Here I compute the angle, and then I add to the coordinates the random distance. I draw with Pygame on top of this transparent surface with a white color. I don't remember what. A true means that you have to close, so you have to connect the last point with the first point. And then I pass all the coordinates of this polygon line.
So this function draws multiple lines in one call. You don't need to call it
just in one call. Yeah, once. Here I do a fluid fill. This is a fluid fill because Pygame doesn't have the fluid fill natively. There are a lot of ways of doing that. This is not the most efficient one, but this is only called at init time, so at creation time. It's not called while we play, so it's fine if this is a little bit slower. So here we do the flat fill with black of the internal space of the asteroid. Otherwise, when it goes above a star, you would see the star through the asteroid, and it doesn't make sense. Then I compute the mask for the collisions starting from the image itself. We get we set the center, the velocity, the previous time, and last hit time is to have to prevent the rock to hit another rock and other rock to hit this rock. So I check the hit of the rock only every 10th of second. So otherwise it becomes a little bit clunky. I mean, A is hitting B, but at the same moment B is hitting A. So to prevent to have to double check that one, I say, okay, when you hit when A hits B for a 10th of second, it can't hit anything else. So sometimes a rock can go a little bit inside the other rock, but it's fine. Then I check because also the rocks, if they exit from a side of the screen, they come back from the other side, and I set the coordinates. And at every update, it check if it's colliding with other rocks.
How does Pygame manage the collision? If you give it a mask, is like more geometrical collision, right? It's not a bounding box type of collision.
No, there are multiple ways of doing collision. There is rectangles, circles, and here I'm using exactly a bitmap. So given an image, if it's not transparent, it is something. So you have the exact boundaries of your sprite. The problem with that, obviously, is that it's a little bit time consuming. So you have to do that with moderation. Instead, if you have entities that are rectangular or round, you can use the other collide functions that are a little bit more optimized for that kind of stuff. They're faster, basically. Also here, we could also improve on our side the code. I mean, there is they are called the TK freeze. You can sort the rocks by distance. If it's not hitting the nearest rock, it should not hit any other rock.
That makes sense. Yep.
And then stop at the first rock that you don't hit. So this is in quadratic time. Instead, we could go in n log n time. But again, we are doing 200 frames per second at the moment, so I think it's not. We are around 1.7. Yeah, we hit the 200 frames per second. So for now, I don't care.
If you do again 100 asteroids, what's the frame rate?
Yeah, now it's 60.
Okay, it degrades a little bit.
It degrades a lot with the growth of the number of asteroids because it's not optimized, like I said. It's something that we will put this code in a repository. We created it. Give us some time to push this to the repository. I can work on improvement on this, but I want to focus before improving the performances. I would like to improve the shape of the code, I like to say, trying to mimic Bevy. Because like we showed the last time, this is absolutely a procedural approach at this, because there is a main loop. In the main loop, we compute the new position, we draw the new positions, we draw the informations, and we start over. Every loop, we do these checks. And here we have just a tick limit that is limiting our frame rate. That at the moment is not limited because the default is 0. So the default is do as many frames as you can. And also the drawing is not optimized here because I'm splitting, what is it? I'm filling the screen with black at every time. I'm redrawing everything again, even if the zone of the image is not changed. That is not the best way of doing this. But I mean, performances for now are not a problem.
Cool. Good job.
So what we want to do in Bevy today.
So I think that the one thing we wanted to do last time and we didn't get to do is animation. So let me actually run what we have in Bevy and we can see where we left it. So this is what we have. Like we can move around. We don't even display fuel or anything, but we added this plugin that allows us to see what is the current fuel. So yeah, we can use that for debugging.
Yeah, this is way ahead of what we have in Pagge.
Yeah, so I think the first thing I would like to do is, we don't have a lot of time today, just 1 hour of stream, so let's be pragmatic. So try to do the flame animation when the engine is on to see the little flame.
And we already have the frames in our sprite atlas.
So that's one thing. Then the other thing we can try to do is to either display the fuel somewhere on screen. That could be another thing. Or we can start to spawn the fuel cells. That could be another thing. So if you have suggestions, let us know in the chat. Meanwhile, we're going to look into how to do sprite animations, which, again, is something we'll need to learn because we never did it before in Bevy. Yeah. So to do that, we were looking at this example that we also looked at last time. This is from the documentation. If you go under examples, there is 2D sprite sheet. And this one, this is a continuous animation. So right now, the first step will be, let's just make it continuous, even if we are not using the engine. Let's just display the animation first, continuously on a loop. And then we try to make it stateful and display it only when you are actually pressing the acceleration button. So let's see how they do this. So apparently they use this thing called animation timer, which is a component that probably they will attach to the sprite. Let's see where they spawn the character. Yes, they insert an animation timer, and then they can specify, I suppose this is the frame rate of the animation.
We have to look at the signature of that from seconds.
Then how do they display a specific frame of the animation? It's probably
I think sprite index is the key. So that sprite comes from the query, and that is the texture atlas sprite.
And then they use sprite index +1
modulo the total number of frames, because obviously if we have 4 frames, we have to ask between 0 and 3.
Okay, the interesting thing is this one, that every time they call this timer tick, which I think it kind of means that the timer that we create, the animation timer, is not advancing on its own. Probably only when you call .tick and the time delta, you are making it progress. And then you have this function, just finish, to see, did we reach the next interval when we have to trigger the next sprite. This is the way I'm reading this.
So this is a way of keeping track of time, basically. So at every tick, at every call of the animate sprite, that is a system, right? How is called the animate sprite?
Animate sprite. This one is a system, yes.
Is a system. Okay, so it's a system. So it's called continuously. At every time that we call that, our time data will tell us what was the amount of time from the last call of this function, right? We add that with the .tick, probably is adding.
Yeah, I think it's advancing the timer. Like the timer on its own probably is not doing anything.
Cool. Just finished probably tell us, look, 0.1 second have passed. So it's 10 frames per second, this animation. And then it just goes to the next frame. I don't understand what is that texture atlas handle that is needed to get the total numbers of frames. So it's needed to get our 4. What is an handle in this case?
I think we do use that as well. Let me review the code. I remember
we already use it.
Yeah, this one. So my understanding of this, and it might be totally wrong, is that this is a way to reference like an asset that lives outside the binary of the game.
Okay, because if there are multiple sprites, it's not our case, but in some games you can have the same texture atlas used by multiple frames, and you don't want to load that image once per every frame. You just want to load it once in all the game, because that image is not going to change. Okay, so it's just a way to texture handle, texture atlas, takes the texture handle, and texture atlas handle takes the texture atlas. Okay. And what do we attach to the ship? Do we attach the texture atlas handle or the texture atlas?
So in this example, what they do
No, in
is
our code, I was asking. What
in
do we
our
attach
code
to
we
the ship?
insert we use this sprite sheet bundle that reference a texture atlas handle.
Okay, so that command spawn is our ship. Can
Yes, yeah,
you
that's the
add a
ship.
comment before line 38 just to say we spawn the ship? Because we understand that this is the ship when at line 51, so a little bit inside the code.
We add the starship
Yeah,
component.
yes, but it's nice to have an idea what is this at the beginning of the bunch of code.
Okay, so if we want to try to apply that idea, we need to create another component. I'm just going to copy paste because I'm lazy, this animation timer, which I'm not entirely sure is necessary because at the end of the day, this is just wrapping an actual timer. So I think we could just use a timer directly, but
Yeah, I don't know why.
I think we could just embed a
wrap it.
timer inside the starship and call it animation timer.
Yeah,
So
probably, but
do we want to try to do it that way rather than?
no, let's stick to the example.
Okay.
Don't go down the route of arting ourselves.
I think this makes sense only if you had multiple entities that have the same animation problem and you want to kind of generalize attaching an animation timer and then having one system attaching that to multiple entities and then having one system to trigger all the animations at the same time. So kind of makes sense in a more generic approach, but I don't know. I think it will work in our case even to just include a timer in the starship.
Yeah, but for now, let's just stick to the example so we don't have
Okay, do we want
surprises.
to for now just create a new system like this, literally?
Yeah, let's exactly do the same.
Cool. Another thing we could do today is to try to refactor this code a little bit because it's
Yeah, you mean
everything
adding files and moving stuff
exactly
inside
everything
other
is in one
files.
file. So here when we spawn the spaceship, we also need to say insert animation timer. Thank you, Copilot. This is basically saying that every 0.2 seconds we go to the next frame. Maybe
In theory, yes. So
we leave it like this.
oh yeah, but I mean, if it's too slow, we just make it smaller.
And repeating through, I believe it means that. So this timer, every time it reaches that 0.2, is going to restart from scratch. So it can tick multiple times.
It can finish multiple times. Yeah, because we are checking is finished or it's finished, just finished. Sorry.
It's like a set interval in a way in JavaScript.
Yeah, more or less, yes.
Okay, so
and that query, let's take a look at how we have to register the animate sprite as a system.
We have to register this one, and right now it's just a function that is not even being used. But let's have a look at the query. So what we are saying is take every entity that has both an animation timer and a texture atlas and a texture and an handle of a texture atlas, I guess. So now I am assuming that an handle is also a component, even though that was not entirely obvious.
No, because we added it inside the sprite bundle.
Do they actually add the handle explicitly here? No, they only add it here. So I suppose this is built in the sprite bundle.
Yeah, probably the sprite bundle. Here they use a spawn bundle. What are we using? A normal spawn?
What do we use? I think we use insert bundle.
We spawn and then we insert bundle. Is the same?
I think this is just a shortcut.
Okay.
But they also do an insert
to add the timer.
So maybe it's just a shortcut.
Okay, let's not change it. Let's keep our code how it is. We just added the animation sprite, and then we wrote that query that gets the right stuff out. And I think the code can stay the same. I mean, we go to the next sprite. We just have to register that as a system.
So if we
to add that, not to register.
Add system of this, I think that if we just run this code, we see the animation on a loop, which
that is not exactly what we want, but at least it is working and doing something.
Oh, compiling. Okay, that seems to work. I don't know if you can appreciate the animation because it's a bit small, but it is.
No, but well, it's visible, and it is slow. I mean, try to make it 0.1. Can you change it from that? No, because we didn't make it inspectable, or is already inspectable by. by default.
The animation timer, we didn't make it inspectable. Let's run it this way, and then we'll try to make it inspectable. Okay, this is a bit faster.
Yeah, probably better. But can you open the
entity?
Yeah, there is the first one is animation timer. Can we change it?
Which says it's not inspectable.
No, okay. So if we want to use this, we need to make it inspectable.
Let's try to do that. Shouldn't be too hard, because what we want to do is reflect component default and then reflect
inspectable.
No, I think we just need to say reflect default, and then we do this. Now default, I suppose it works because timer has probably some default implementation. And now we need to register this as inspectable. Okay, let's see if that works. So entity, animation timer. Now we have, oh, look at that. We see elapsed, and we can change the duration, for instance. What if we make it 1 second? Yeah, it changes the frame every second.
Yeah, it goes up to 1, then it reset.
Mm-hmm.
Repeating, yes, finished. We are not seeing finished. Yeah, we saw that for a moment.
Yeah, it ticks for like 1 frame, so it's...
Yeah, it's hard to see it in the stream, but it's happening. Okay, cool. So it's also inspectable now. Nice.
Okay, so now
we need to trigger it to let it. We have to stay on frame 0 always, except if we are giving trust. When are we giving trust? When the up arrow is pressed. Where do we do that check? There is an if.
Exactly, because here we have a totally independent system
in the engine
that doesn't know anything about trust or starship.
Yeah, we need to make it aware of the engine somehow. I think. And how can we make this communication happen? Do we need a state? Can we pass events? How is working?
Yeah, I don't know about events. There is a concept of events in Bevy, but I haven't looked into that.
Okay, let's try with state then.
So let's think, given what we know, how can we do this? And by the way, chat, if you know, give a suggestion. But my idea would be that either we keep it generic. And by keeping it generic, that means that, for instance, in this query, we can also add a concept of, I don't know, engine. And we can also query all the entities that have an engine. They actually do this. But that means that the engine needs to have a concept of a state. Like if you just accelerate it or not.
Can we scroll up a little bit and we have our engine handling up there? Yeah, this one, engine system. If keyboard input is pressed and we have fuel, we are doing stuff. Here we can just also say if keyboard input just pressed up and we have fuel or not.
So one idea, I like where you're going, and what I will say is that here we can say accelerating
is on. Yes, something like is on.
Or yeah, is on. I like it. I think it's probably more correct. Now, by default, where we do that, it's false.
It's not on. Yeah.
And now what we can do here is in our query, here we also want mute. Actually, we just want a reference.
No, just an engine.
And basically what we say is...
In the 4 we need to... Okay, here we already have 4 entities in one query. What happens when you have 20 of them?
I think there is a limit. I'm not too sure if it's 15 or something. I read about that, but there is a limit. So you cannot go too wild with too many properties.
Yeah, because if you start to compose your components a lot and you go to very fine-grained type of components, you can have queries with a lot of them.
But that means that you are also doing extremely fine-grained systems. Like you want to do something that only happens for components that have, I don't know, a subset of 15 or more components.
Yes, it's okay. Probably it's not happening. Good.
Okay, so here what we want to do.
Okay, what we want to do is to keep the sprite index at 0 if the engine is off.
So what we could do here is saying and engine is on, else we just say sprite index 0. That makes sense?
No, because the timer can be not finished, but the engine can be on.
But this way we always complete the animation smoothly, depending if you want to stop the animation in between or not.
Yeah, but the animation must exclude the frame 0. The animation must be frame 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then go back to 0 when you turn off.
You're right.
So it was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, back to 0 when it's off. So that sprite index must be modulo del... this is hard. But well, is that one, and if you land on 0, you go back to 1. You can do if sprite index is 0.
Aren't you gonna repeat 1 twice this way?
No. Because you go 1, 2, 3, you will go back to 0, but then you do immediately plus equal 1. So
we can do here basically if sprite
index is 0, sprite index plus. Can you do plus in Rust? I never remember that.
You can no.
Okay, that code is fine. So instead, you go to 0 only if the engine is off. So instead of being an else, you can do another if not engine is on, sprite index is 0.
So that means that we want to stop the animation immediately. We don't want to wait for the 02 or 01 seconds.
No, we stop immediately. It's easier. Come on.
Okay. I mean,
instead of making an else, you do if engine not on. So
yeah.
Yeah, if not engine is on, sprite 0. Now we have to set the engine is on in the engine.
We can test it with the debugger just to see if it works. Right.
Okay. You set the engine to 1.
So by default, it's not doing anything, which seems good. Now, if we go to the engine and say is on, it's animating. If we stop, it stops animating.
Okay.
Perfect.
Now we just need to probably make the animation faster, but that is just a number, and to change is on in our engine system.
Okay, so if we go in our engine system, which was here, what we want to do is if pressed, we set the engine to on. Do we do just an else and set it to off?
Yeah, I think is enough.
Then what
inside that if
then we just do engine is on equal this.
No, because you're not taking the fuel in account that way.
Oh, you're right. Cool, you're right. So engine is
you
on.
have to put the same condition in the you can in line 123 you can do is pressed and you have fuel, or you can do that.
Yeah, let's just do it this way. I was trying
but then if you change the if in line 115 for any reason, because we have the behaviors, you have to remember always to keep the two of them aligned.
Yeah, I prefer this way. Okay, let's see if this works. Actually, another thing I wanted to do is to have more fuel by default.
1,000. So
where do we are? Yeah, let's add 1,000 because it finished very easily.
Then I will ask you if we can have a configuration file with all these numbers instead of
I guess
having them around the code.
Ooh, works. Pretty cool. Okay, now I'm gonna run out of fuel eventually, and it's not gonna animate anymore. I still have fuel. Okay, now I'm just drifting in space. I cannot accelerate anymore.
Cool. And you have a visual feedback of that because you're not turning on the thrusters.
Nice. Okay.
You want now to what you say? Adding fuel in the space, or
we have different options. We can either start to spawn the fuel cells. We can display text on screen to show the fuel.
The text, right? At least the fuel, yeah.
That's another option. Or we can also try to refactor the code a little bit.
Let's add the text and then refactor.
Let's add the text. Yeah, it shouldn't be too hard because it's something that I've done before in a previous prototype. So I have the code somewhere here, and I can try to have a look. So I think the idea is that we need to create another entity which represents the text because it's something we want to draw in the screen. So we will need a system that queries for that entity and then updates it. So I suppose we can just call it fuel status text or something like that. And do we make it inspectable as well?
I have no idea exactly how it works. Does this component need something?
To be honest,
because the fuel is already in the engine, so we just have to show that what is in the engine. We don't need
Yeah, because basically what you can do, there is this idea of text bundle, right? Which allows you to create an entity that is like a sprite, but rather than display graphics, it displays text. And you can select a font, you can do all these kind of things. Actually, let's take the example in the documentation. I think there is one that we can use. So if we go back to examples, text 2D, this is what we want to do. Well, here is doing a bunch of stuff. It moves, it scales, rotates. We just need to display text and update that text every time the fuel changes. So let's see, how do they display this text? Okay, so they just add components to be able to query and update properties on that text, which is something we want to do because we want to update when the amount of fuel in the engine changes.
So we have to query the engine to get the number and the text to update it. So, okay, we will see.
So that's why I was creating a component that even like here, it doesn't really contain anything. It's just a way to identify.
Yeah, but if it contains if it doesn't contain anything, what is inspectable? I mean,
yeah, it doesn't need to be inspectable.
What do we expect? Nothing.
Yeah, you cannot change any properties.
Yeah, there is no properties.
So then there is a way to load fonts, and we do have a custom font. I don't know if you can just use, like, if you need to load a font, or you can just use system fonts. So for now, we're just going to stick with loading a font.
In Pygame, you can use both, but I'm using the system ones because I'm lazy.
So probably there is a way to load a font. So rather than loading a font, to use a system font. But for now, we're just going to load our own font.
Then you need a text style.
Then we need a text style, and then text alignment if you want. And then you do the spawn bundle text 2D. This is, I think, the renderer of text, basically. And you can pass all the different properties. Now, there is another more advanced way, which I was looking at, that doesn't show here, I think. Let's see if there is another example. No, I remember I found another example somewhere else, which is probably a common use case. When you have different fragments that can be updated, you can basically treat them as different sub-entities, so you can access them as an array of different pieces of text and only update the parts that are dynamic. For instance, we could have a label saying fuel, column, and a number. You could be using something that is called sections, and then the first section is always fuel, the other section is the number dynamically. And you could also use different styles. For instance, the first section is always white, the second part of the text is, I don't know, maybe changes color, it's green when you have max fuel, it goes into red when you start to lose fuel.
But let's start simple, just put a number up there.
Exactly.
And so the position, where is defined?
Position, I think it depends on alignment. That's a good question.
I mean, you want it in the center of the screen, at the top, at the bottom. Alignment is inside the box, it's not inside it's not around the screen. Try to scroll a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good question. Where do they position it?
There is a box position that is a vector of two numbers. And when do they use box position?
Oh, yeah, they use text 2D bounds.
No, I think it's the line transform from translation box position extended 00. They use the transform.
But I have no idea what this means.
Box position is just a vector. I have no idea what extends 00 means. Okay, let's use the transform and put that in the center of the screen. Then we look how to move it.
Sounds good. So what we do is let's copy this code. So they use the asset server, which we have.
Yeah, I'm worried about that font.
We do have a font in our assets, so just gonna use that one.
Okay. I don't think we need a test alignment, or do we need it?
Let's try not to use it. So let's just copy this one. Okay, we keep the fuel status text. So here we do have the asset server. So what we can do is this, and our font is called Monocraft. Is it a TTF? No, it's OTF. No. OTF. Then text style, and then what we want to do is let's do another spawn. So spawn.
We can reuse the same command?
I think so. Oh, by the way, it's guessing even the comment. That's good. Sorry, jumping around. So insert.
I would have expected that you needed a new command dot spawn, and you were not chaining on top of this. But fine, okay.
Look at that. Is this what we
This
want?
this is also with sections, like you were talking about.
Yeah, it's, by the way, it's guessing fuel close to what we want.
Yeah, I don't know that with section what exactly it means.
Yeah, let's just do text to the bundle, and then we have our text, which is how did they do it here? Let's see.
They do a text to text, I think.
From section, and then they just say translation and the style. Okay, let's just do this. And for now, we just say fuel without even specifying a value.
Yeah, without number.
I'm missing a parenthesis. Is that it? Do we need a default? Probably yes. Now this spawn, why doesn't work? Do I need to call commands again?
I was expecting that, to be honest.
I thought I would do that, but whatever. Commands. Okay, do we need to clone? Probably not, because we're not using it.
Yeah, we only have one text. We are not. But what? We will need to clone if we have two.
Let's see. It should display fuel
in the center because we didn't change
somewhere.
We didn't change the transform.
Exactly. Cool. I like it.
Okay. Right. A little bit smaller probably is better. But...
Yep. So rather than 60, we do.
And above the ship, not below the ship. Now it's below the ship. Yeah, instead of 60, we can do something less.
Let's actually put it here.
Try a 12 or a 10. Let's see how big it is. And add a transform alongside the text, I think. And we can say vector free. Yes. Oh, it was working. That Z. A higher Z is below or is above?
I don't know.
Okay, try to put -1 in the Z of that vector free.
I think I would actually put 1.
Okay, to see if he's above. Yeah, you're right. We want that in the foreground.
If it works like a browser.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's drawing a fuel message above.
Cool. Now, at the top of the screen?
At the top of the screen, how do we do that?
We have the sides of the screen. We use
use that window. I'm wondering if there is
smarter way.
An easier way to just say position it somewhere in relationship to the canvas.
Instead that related to your reference system that is at 0, the center of the screen.
Okay, so there is this align self. I'm seeing this somewhere else. So what we could do is this, I think, or not.
Yeah, what is a self-end?
I think this in the
No,
it's not a text style. It's an actual style. How do we attach the style?
There is a style at the level of transform and text, or
with style. Oh. Okay, let's try this one. Let's trust Copilot. Top right. Let's see if it's true that it goes top right of the screen.
I think it's going top right of the box that contains the text.
Yeah, that's true. Is it?
Yeah, so it moved. Right? It moved. It moved because the starships start at 0, 0, and then it moved probably. So it's in the center. You align it right and top. So yeah, that point is the center. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you align vertical and top, center, instead of top right, there will be vertical line.
That's very sweet. Because I have another example where I use a width style, and then.
But you don't know where to attach it.
And this width style is text bundle from sections. So if we use, which is the same. So what am I doing wrong?
I don't see your example. So
let me bring it to screen. So I have this example here. Okay, I don't know if you can read it, and it's basically here I have this flex end.
That is on top of the from sections. Okay, if you copy that, let's go back to our...
Oh yeah, the difference is that this text bundle is what we spawn.
Is from sections and takes a list.
Let's copy this one, because I'm quite sure that this one spawns it at the top left of the screen. This is what I remember. So if we, rather than spawning a text 2D bundle, we just spawn this. Okay, now what are we doing? We're basically saying the first thing is fuel, the first section, and then the other section is 1000.
Yeah, because you're spawning an array.
Exactly.
Of texts.
But then you can update every fragment of the text, every part of the array independently. And you could have colors and so on.
Width style is on top of both the section, not just one.
Okay, let's see if that works as expected. Font, what? Where is this? Inline 45. Oh, we already loaded that font. Okay, so we can just reference the same font.
Yeah. Do you need to clone it, or is it enough to reference it?
Good question. Let's see what it does. Most likely we'll need to clone it because we're not passing a reference.
Yeah, but why clone a font? We have it.
Probably just going to clone the reference. Is it? Value moved. Okay. I don't think it does like an actual clone. Okay, here is saying keep the original. Right?
Because
and then you can just do this.
It's the last clone, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's not complaining. Cool, and it's doing it there. Now, why this flex end? Is it because, let me see what is the transform of this guy. Like when you go up, yeah, because it's end is at the top on the y-axis, and probably the default is on the left side on the x-axis.
What are you talking about? Sorry, I lost you for a moment.
Basically, it's too obvious why flex end puts it at the top left corner and not like flex start. I think if you give it flex start, it puts it at the bottom. Let's try that. So bottom left corner, yeah. Just because the y-axis is like positive on the top and negative on the bottom.
And if I want it in the center top, what is... That's sorry.
So you probably have... Actually, let's do flex end here. I like to put it at the top right because we have the debugger there. And let's see what other properties we have. Align content.
But align self just has those two, flex end and flex start, nothing else?
Good question. Baseline, center, flex end, flex start. So we want flex start to be there. And then is there another align?
Or you combine them with ORs? What are they?
Let's see if this changes something. I don't think so, to be honest, but... No, it's still there.
It's beautiful there. Leave it there.
Okay, let's leave it there.
Now let's move stuff out.
And now, before we need to also add another thing. We need to say...
we need to copy the data inside it.
Insert
the component. Okay.
So now we can query it.
We need a new system. Let's create this system before moving the code to files. We need a new system to update the label.
Or we use the engine system. It gets messy, right?
We can do that in the engine system. We have to add to the query what?
Because here
the query is querying an object that has velocity, transform, and an engine, but the text doesn't have an engine. But the text doesn't have all of that. We need to query the text.
So we need to query
the text and also an engine, but not on the same component, on two different components. How can you do that? Can you do two queries in one system?
You could, but then you get two set of results.
And what is the problem? You loop on top of engine and you update the only label that you have.
But I think what we could do, let's disregard most of the stuff.
Autopilot, go moment you're drunk.
Why there is also an extra parenthesis?
Why not?
So I think what we want to do is to query the fuel status text. Actually, no, we want to query text.
We want to query
with fuel.
We want to query the fuel status text
and mutable. The engine that doesn't need to be mutable.
But they must not be in the same.
But it needs to be a fuel status text.
Oh
yeah, I see what you mean. They are not on the same entity.
Try to add two queries to that system to see if it's possible.
Yes. Okay. So what we can do is this, and this is correct. Right? Let's call it query text.
You need to use the with.
Yes, because if there are other pieces of text, we get all of them. This is just to make sure we get our fuel status text.
Yes, but if you do mutable fuel status text, the variable that you get back from that doesn't have the text, no?
So text, it will be here in this component. Fuel status text is just a label that we use to...
Okay, because it has no properties, it's empty, basically.
Exactly, so it's just a marker to distinguish between that text and potential other pieces of text.
Sorry, now I understood. Sorry, I was a little bit dumb.
Now we can do...
query engine.
Engine, yeah. Or let's call it starship engine query, or query underscore. And this is going to be another query where we take...
an engine. Because
a reference to an engine with starship, right? It needs to be that specific.
Yeah, we can be more specific, but at the moment...
what did we call it? Starship? Starship.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Okay, that's what we want.
Now
right?
there was the find one. How was called?
This one.
A single. Yeah.
Mute. I don't think we need to do unwrap. Yeah, that there is some. Probably there is some API breaking change there that Copilot doesn't know yet. Then we have the engine, and then we want to say text section 1, so the second element in the section. Format makes sense. Let's try it.
Yeah, let's register that system. It's not registered, it's add. I go on saying a system with the Y, not with the I.
Oh, meanwhile, we had a new follower, Ghost Pants 8. Great name. Thank you for the follow.
Write the system correctly.
System above, I suppose. I did a typo.
No. The typo is system with the I.
Oh, yes. With the I. Nice. Okay, let's see. Is this going to work? Compile.
Please compile.
1000. Works.
Nice. And is above or below? Try to go with the ship under the text to see if you are below or above. You're below. Okay.
Cool. So, how are we doing with time? Should we stop here for today?
Yeah, probably yes. We refactor the code the next time.
Perfect. So let me commit this. We didn't do much, but at least we learned a little bit about animations.
We have a proper animation on the starship, and we have our fuel written in a corner.
Engine animation.
And we show that in the system you can do two queries and combine data from two different queries. That was not so obvious to me. I mean,
yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's actually very interesting how we call it multiple times like dependency injection system, because at the end of the day, it's injecting stuff into your function. It's pretty powerful because you can put multiple queries, you can put resources, you can put file handle, whatever was the thing that we use somewhere else. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then you have different kind of resources, different types of queries, for instance, for time or for input, or as we saw, two different queries. So it kind of makes sense now we're looking at this where we're using two resources that we can also use queries multiple times. But yeah, I guess we did have to find a use case to fully appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So
okay, let's
wrap up.
Let's wrap up. So yeah, as usual, thank you everyone for following today. Thank you also again to GhostFans8 for the follow. What we're going to be doing is, as usual, uploading the video on YouTube. We will have a link to the repository there, and we will also publish all the Python code somewhere in another repository and make the link available in the recording on YouTube. So make sure to follow on YouTube. I'm going to post the link here. And then we are going to see you next time, which is probably going to be next Monday evening. So check out Twitter, check out LinkedIn, wherever you follow us. We will announce it there, but also check out the schedule on Twitch for the next live stream. So see you next time.
See you. Bye.
Bye.